Okay, in this video, we're going to look at the most important question for the reading portion of the exam, and that's what we're focusing on in these videos, the evaluation question. The one that if you add up questions 1, 2, and 3, you arrive at question 4. This requires a lot of strategic thinking, focus, timing. If you've done your timing well, you've landed on question 4 with plenty of time and space. If you've annotated your source well, you've already done the work for question 4. You will be very well placed when you know what you're doing. If you try to improvise this paper, it's question 3 that'll trip you up, and then question 4, usually students don't have enough time, and so they don't write enough. And it's really a bad situation when a student's written more for question 3 than they have for question 4 and 2. It really shows me that you're confused and you're allowing the complexity of the paper to hijack your strategy. And your strategy is what's going to get you through this exam. So remember, question 1, anyone who spends 5 minutes on it really doesn't understand a thing and is feeling too comfortable with the exam for the first time that they're writing it. 12 minutes for question 2. Question 2, now that you understand what language analysis is and you have to continually return to it, you will do better. Question 3 is what we did in the last one, and we've talked about it as a trap question. We've discussed not using language analysis. We talk about carving up the source and not making it too complicated, given that it's only 8 marks, that it's the same as question 2. When I say trap, it doesn't mean to do more. It means to do less. It means to be more strategic and more quick, and really bring your attention to the 20 marks here for question 4. I recommend 25 minutes, and this now will become an entire hour that you've spent on the reading exam, dislodging yourself of the notion of reading for 15 minutes. What we're doing is evaluating. And evaluating means the question is designed to be agreed with. Some people think that disagreeing gives you more marks or there's more nuance. This may be true, may not be true, but definitely the exam is designed for the statement to be agreed with. I'm a bit frustrated with the way this question is worded because it's this strange way the student has some statement. What we've got to do is figure out what exactly we're being asked to look at. Then we need to reread the section because we've read it once during question 3, and we got to get relevant, rich quotations out, and we need to build our answer. So let's look at the question first. Let's figure out what exactly are we being asked. Now, you've already known, we looked at the range in the last video because we know that gives us some insight into what's happening in question 3, because at line 19 something important often happens. Then you get this really strange statement. This part of the story, set in the hat shop, shows that the red-haired girl has many advantages in life, and I think Rosabel is right to be angry. To what extent do you agree? Okay, well, let's think. Consider your own impressions of the red-headed girl. Evaluate how the writer conveys Isabel's reactions to the red-headed girl. Now, I'm very annoyed with this second bullet point because the word evaluates there. And this leads students to think that this is what the question's actually about, whereas evaluate isn't the key word. In fact, I'm going to cross that out. I think the key word here is how. What really is hidden is this. What am I evaluating? It's this part of the question. I think Rosabel is right to be angry. A, the red-haired girl. B, how does the writer show her reactions? How equals methods equals devices, literary devices. And C, did she have a right to be angry? Now, you've read the source. I'll just remind you, Rosabel is quite poor. She has to choose, for example, flowers instead of food. She works in a shop. She can't afford the things. That's Rosabel. The red-haired girl has money, lover, who buys her stuff, who buys everything. She gets to order Roz around. There's plenty of reasons why she has that she gets angry. She doesn't express her anger, I should say, but she has plenty of reasons to be angry. Now, were you to respond in this way, this simply isn't enough. Why? What is really missing here? Well, we have broken down the question, but what we're missing is evidence. From the evidence, what we're missing are devices, which is how. How is this anger shown? And we are missing our actual opinion. Did she have a right to be angry? And this is really what this question's about. Now, there is a model of writing this, which is you could do one paragraph on this, one paragraph on this, and one on this. Or you could combine all three of these and write 1, 2, or 3 paragraphs, whatever you feel. I think 2 paragraphs, extended paragraphs, where you use a lot of evidence and analysis and give your evaluation at the top and tail of every paragraph, could be a very effective way of answering this question. So you notice the first real thing that you've got to think about with question 4 is, what exactly am I being asked to evaluate? And not to just fall into this trap of going with the word evaluate telling us, but actually we can do something more. So since we've carved up the source already, our annotations are here, and what we're thinking about is, what is the red-headed girl like? So I have that here. I'm going to change colors because it helps. So my question 4 will be in blue. So here I get some quotations on the red-headed girl. What is it that I want, Harry? As Rosabel took the pins out of her hat, untied the veil, and gave her a hand mirror. You must have a black hat with a feather that goes right round it, round your neck, and ties in a bow under your chin, and a decent-sized feather. The girl glanced at Rosabel laughingly. Have you any hats like that? That's interesting. Are they having fun? I don't know. I write on my source always because I try to get that annotation down because it's my first draft of my ideas. They'd been very hard to please. Harry would demand the impossible. Rosabel was almost in despair. And then she remembered the big untouched box upstairs. One moment. I think I can show you something that will please you better. Breathlessly, she cut the cords, scattered the tissue paper. Yes, there was the very hat. Great curled feather, black velvet rose, nothing else. They had been charmed. The girl had put it on and then handed it to Rosabel. So actually here, this is the imagery. This is the boyfriend himself is away. She's working hard. This is C. Working hard to find the right hat. Let's see how it looks on you, she said. Rosabel turned to the mirror and placed it on her brown hair, then faced him. Oh, Harry, isn't it adorable? The girl cried, I must have that. She smiled again at Rosabel. It suits you beautifully. Here we get her C. She thinks it isn't reasonable. She's calling it ridiculous. It seized her. It grabs her. She longed, she desired to throw it. This fantasy, imagery. But crucially, she doesn't. She doesn't act on her anger. Maybe that shows us that she had a right to be angry, but she doesn't express it. I think we have enough that we could organize our A quotations, our B quotations, and our C quotations. So for me now, using the resources I've given you for this, you're breaking the question into parts. I've given you a bunch of the quotations that I think you could use. What you could decide is which is your A, which is your B, which is your C quotes, and you could label them. And then what you could do is, well, you could decide, do you want to do an A paragraph? You could do 3 paragraphs, A, B, and C. Or you could do A, B, C, A, B, C. And that's 2 paragraphs. And what do these paragraphs look like? Well, they're very traditional kind of analytic paragraphs. You could use PW, point, evidence, word analysis, explanation, expand. You want to do effect of the device because it's B. You want to have the evaluation at the top and bottom of your paragraphs. That's C. You see that if you don't understand what you're doing for this question, you're going to find it very difficult. If you don't understand this A, B, C problem, what you can do is just think about using these 2 bullet points and answering them, and then to stretch yourself to answer that. Really, A, B, and C is usually towards the end of the student statement. If you can get those 3 statements broken up, if you can find relevant evidence, and then you can analyze, talk about the effects on the reader. Now that's crucial already for language analysis, so you see why it's so important that skill is developed. But crucially, giving your opinion, justifying your opinion on what your personal response is on the evaluation. Does she have a right to be angry or not? Now, again, the statement invites you to agree, so I would encourage you to do that just to make it easier on yourself. You do not need to make it complicated. So if I just go back to AQA's advice now, evaluate, you can think of the word value in there. You can think about trying to figure out what it is that you're valuing. And crucially, it's the student statement, often the third portion of it. I would really invite you to break the question down into parts to figure out what the evaluation is. To use the first 2 bullet points is a why or what and a how. So the first bullet point is why or what. The second bullet point is the how, the methods, the devices, which is really crucial for this question. You've figured out what it is to be evaluated, and I encourage you again to think about that as something to be agreed with. When you're writing, you are still analyzing, and you're analyzing language, commenting on devices and effects. But what you're doing to go a little bit further is you're making sure that you link in your explanation to the evaluation. Now, this skill is really crucial. Language analysis is really crucial for the whole course, but evaluation is really crucial because if you can learn how to evaluate here, when you're doing this in the literature exam, this is a very advanced skill towards more advanced thesis-driven persuasive analytic writing, which is what you're doing when you're writing a literary essay. And if you can evaluate, meaning if you can figure out to what extent you agree with the question and the theme in the literature exam, if you're evaluating, you're working at a very high level. That's why this question is worth so much. That's why it's so complicated. But once you get a grip with what you're doing, and once you're starting to feel more confident in terms of analysis, you will feel more confident here as well. Now, that's all of the videos for the Language 1 reading exam. I would strongly encourage you to practice writing this paper more than once and rewriting your mock paper from December, certainly writing it to time. In lessons, we'll be working on the creative writing. If you've done all that, you will be in a place to evaluate yourself where your understanding is. Do you understand what you're doing in every question? Do you understand how to do it to time? And can you do it in an efficient, quick way without losing heart?